Lifeson is the man behind the guitar and the heartbeat of the whole rock band Rush. He quietly made epic prog rock anthems for more than 50 years, never needing the attention or wanting praise. With technical skill that can't be beat and a creative mind that was ahead of its time. He was born Aleksandar Živojinović and is more than just a guitarist. He's an important part of Canada's musical past and a silent but necessary icon. Rush was once panned by reviewers and ignored by the American market because it was too hard to understand. But Lifeson, who was always trying new sounds, made the band famous. Between the songs 2112 and Tom Sawyer, with their fast riffs and big open chords, he created a sound world that was both strange and familiar. But away from the stage lights and loud crowds, Lifeson decided to live a normal life. He has been married to the same woman since he was 17 and has never been in a scandal or made a public complaint. There is a famous guitarist who lives quietly as if he were never famous. It's this duality that makes Lifeson so unique. Not only for what he plays, but also for how he lives. That quiet holds a lot of weight. But how can a rock artist stay whole in a business that is known for destroying the best things? What does Lifeson really make him unique? And what's going on behind that calm, steady exterior? Watch this video to find out. Childhood. He was born in Fernie, a small town in British Columbia, Canada, on August 27, 1953. His given name, Aleksandar Živojinović, made it clear that he was from Yugoslavia, since both of his parents came from Serbia. Soon after, the family moved to Toronto, where Alex grew up in an area with a lot of immigrants. He spoke Serbian at home and learned English on the streets. Alex, like many first-generation kids who moved to a new country, had to find his way between two worlds, his parents' strict traditions and the West's open, always changing society. Alex's dad was a machine shop owner who had high standards for his son. Alex should study medicine and become a doctor, he told her. The kind of success story that many immigrant families hoped for. Alex had other ideas, though. He became interested in the guitar when he was only 12 years old and spent most of his time training himself while listening to the Beatles, The Who, and Cream over and over again. Music wasn't just fun. It was where he was, a free place away from the strict rules that his family and society had put on him as a kid of immigrants. Alex met another outcast at St. Patrick's High School. His name was Geddy, and his parents had lived through the Holocaust. The two quickly became close because they both felt like they didn't quite fit in with the world around them. Their friendship wasn't just a fluke. Both of them were young and felt like they had to live up to their family's standards, but they also wanted to live their own lives. Even though his father strongly advised him not to, Alex kept pursuing music. By the time he was 17, he had done something that many people thought was dangerous. For the guitar, he dropped out of high school and didn't go back. Teenagers weren't acting out of anger on the spur of the moment. The person who made the choice knew he didn't fit on the safe path. Alex didn't want to become a doctor. Music was the only thing that could help him become an artist. Lifeson's childhood and teen years were not full of loud drama. But in the conflict between what his family expected and his artistic sense, between East and West, he created his own unique sound. He didn't say much, but every note he played told a story of where he came from, what he wanted, and how he got there from the edges. In the beginning, when everyone thought he would become a doctor, that's when music first came out. Early career, Lifeson's musical journey didn't start on a big stage or in a fancy recording studio. It started in damp basements, with small gigs at local bars and a strong desire to make music. Alex and his high school friend John Rutsey started a small band in the Willowdale neighborhood of Toronto in 1968, when they were both only 15 years old. They named it Rush. No one thought that name would become so important in music history. Rush used to play cover songs by British rock bands like Led Zeppelin, Cream, and the Yardbirds. Their music was still rough and based on hard rock. Alex was the lead guitarist and made the group's sound. Geddy wasn't in the band at first, but a few months later, Alex asked Geddy, a close friend with whom he used to play music, to take over as bassist and lead singer for Jeff Jones. It was a quiet choice that was very important. The heart of Rush was now set in stone. The band was having a hard time getting started in the early 1970s. They played at fairs, coffee shops, and high school gyms. They carried their own gear, set up their own shows, and didn't get any help from record labels. Most people didn't think it was worth their money to listen to a Canadian band whose music was too hard to understand and wasn't good for radio. But Alex, who was strong-willed and very emotional, never gave up. He kept practicing nonstop and trying out new sound ideas. Over time, he developed an organized, layered, and clearly his own guitar style. In 1974, not long after Rush's self-titled debut record came out, John Rutsey quit the band because of health problems. Neil Peart, a smart and driven drummer, joined the group at that point. When Peart joined, the trio was complete. Peart was the intellectual mind, Geddy was the heart that could do many things at once, and Alex was the hands that made the music come to life. Since then, Alex Lifeson has done more than just play guitar, he has become a true sound engineer. He played with instruments like the mandolin, bouzouki, and even computers, and added delay effects and open chords. Rush didn't want to follow the crowd, as shown by albums like Fly By Night, 1975, Caress of Steel, 1975, and especially 2-1-1-2, 1976. Lifeson, as the band's sound pioneer, was a big part of that brave change. There were no big hits, no support from major labels, and no flashy advertising efforts. Alex Lifeson's unwavering commitment and the hard work of his bandmates, on the other hand, helped Rush build a completely new musical base. It wasn't music that tried to please everyone, but it did make people pay attention in the end. And that was the start of Alex Lifeson. Not with a bang, but with a strong determination. A successful job. There weren't any big hits, a lot of TV shows, or scandals to keep people interested. As an artist, Alex Lifeson always chose to stand just off-center. But he built one of the most successful and solo careers in rock history. In the world of Rush, he wasn't the star or the voice, but he was the rock that held the music together between the wild and the philosophical. As soon as Neil Peart joined Rush in 1974, the three of them quickly moved away from traditional hard rock and into the riskier area of progressive rock. It required a lot of complicated musical knowledge, long songs with lots of layers of meaning, and most importantly, it didn't follow the rules of mainstream music. It was a quick way for many bands to fail at the music business, but for Rush and Lifeson, it was the way to endless creativity. The 2112 album was made under a lot of stress in 1976. Mercury Records told them to tone down the weirdness and write music that was easier for people to understand. But the band said no. They didn't go in the same way. The record starts with a 20-minute suite that is about a terrible future where people can't listen to music and their uniqueness is erased. Lifeson added riffs and solos that were both rebellious and cinematic to the suite with his Gibson ES-355. These solos cut through authority like a blade. Without Alex, the number 2112 might have stayed a dry literary idea. When he played it, it turned into a loud rhythmic statement. Its surprising success not only saved the band, but it also proved something new. The market wasn't important to Rush. They would have to go to the market. That was the start of Rush's golden age. Over the next 30 years, they put out a string of records that are now seen as modern prog rock classics: Goodbye to Kings, Hemispheres, Permanent Waves, Moving Pictures, Signals, and Power Windows. Lifeson was always the middle ground between two extremes in every song. The synthesizers and digital soundscapes of Geddy Lee, and the heavy, metaphorical words of Neil Peart. Lifeson made space with his guitar between those two huge walls. Lifeson went in a different direction than many of his friends, who were more interested in technical showmanship. Each solo was like a short story that made me feel a lot. In Limelight, he used delayed chords to show how fame made him feel stuck. As a joke about the music business, he switched from heavy riffing to a reggae beat in the style of Radio. He painted a strange dream world without saying a word in La Villa Strangiato, an almost 10-minute piece. He wasn't great at playing fast, but at setting the mood, which is something that not many musicians can do. Rush's fame wasn't caused by the media. They didn't do much on TV, didn't hire public relations firms, and wouldn't play the radio game. But by staying true to themselves and changing their sound all the time, they gained a huge group of devoted fans around the world who bought tickets, records, and stuck with them for decades. To the people of Canada, Rush was a national gem. Even though radio stations in the US didn't play them, they regularly sold out big arenas. In Europe, they were praised as the band for thinkers because they didn't make hits but rather experiences. For Alex Lifeson, this time of success was also a time to try out new instruments in a quiet way, such as mandolins, acoustic guitars, MIDI guitars, and pedal synths. He was the most careful member backstage. He was always checking his own sound, setting his amps, and fine-tuning his effects. He never let anyone set up his gear for him, even when he was famous. Lifeson hasn't had any big hits with his solo albums. But from 1974 to 2012, he played on all 20 of Rush's studio records, which is very rare in the ever-changing world of rock. Rush was finally added to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2013. It's long past, but it's due. And Lifeson didn't give an emotional speech when he got up on stage. He kept saying the same words over and over. For more than 3 minutes, making fun of the system that had ignored them for a long time in a different tone each time. That was his style, quiet but important. You don't need many words to say a lot. Awards and chart positions aren't the best way to judge Alex Lifeson's work. It must be felt in the way he lived, in the sounds that still play through millions of headphones, and in the respect that the next generation of artists show him. Always staying true to himself and the song. That is more than just success. That is a victory that deserves to be called eternal. Life in general. Alex Lifeson is one of the few rock artists who doesn't live a wild life or get into scandals or breakups with their wives. There were no extramarital relationships, bad divorces, or drug use. He instead picked a life based on stability and strong family ties. Something that doesn't happen very often for an artist who has played over 40,000 shows around the world. Alex fell in love with Charlene in high school. They met in Toronto when they were both teenagers. They fell in love when he was just starting to play music in dirty practice rooms. He only had a guitar and a vague dream of becoming famous as a musician. In 1975, just as Rush was becoming popular in the US, Alex and Charlene got married in private, with no big event. Since then, they've been together for almost 50 years, through all the ups and downs that fame and a never-ending tour schedule can do to a relationship. They have 2 boys named Justin and Adrian. In the end, Justin did what his father did and became a musician. He formed a band and worked on solo projects. Alex always stood by his son and never put pressure or demands on him. He learned that from his own youth, when his father wanted him to become a doctor. Alex thinks that art should come from being free. Lifeson's personal life wasn't completely smooth, though. The most important event took place at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in Naples, Florida, on New Year's Eve 2003. After the cops told his son Justin to leave the stage because he was being too loud at a private party, the argument turned physical. Alex stepped in to protect his son, but he and Justin were both pepper sprayed, hit, and arrested. The US media paid a lot of attention to the case when it went to court, but the charges were finally dropped out of court, and the incident was forgotten. The incident is still a sore spot in what has been a fairly calm life. But when looked at from a different angle, it also shows what kind of person Lifeson is, calm and friendly, but very protective of his family. Lifeson likes a lot of different things besides music. He is not at all like the typical rock guitarist. He works as an oil painter in an abstract fantasy style and loves to play golf. He also co-owned the Orbit Room, a Toronto bar with live music that became a meeting place for independent artists in Canada. Lifeson kept a low profile throughout his career and almost never made news for something that wasn't connected to music. People who have worked with Alex often say that he is very funny, kind, and always thinking about other people. It wasn't just true on stage. It touched every part of his life. In how he fathered, loved, and made friends. Alex Lifeson kept the quiet character of a man who knows who he is, what he needs, and what really matters in a field that often praises ego and chaos. He never needed to shock people or cause personal drama to stay in the public eye. He decided to be quiet, and that's what makes him unique, his legacy and influence. When it comes to famous guitarists, speed, showmanship, and a fiery personality are often seen as signs of greatness. Alex Lifeson, on the other hand, is quietly rebellious. He wasn't the fastest, he didn't want to be famous, and he never made himself a media star. But over more than 40 years with Rush, Alex Lifeson left behind a deep and unreplaceable body of music. Many people fought about this legacy all the time, so it didn't need to be loud to be recognized. From 2011 to 2012 to Clockwork Angels, Lifeson was the only member of Rush who was always on stage. Not just about how dedicated he is, but about something else as well. He made the band sound the way it did. Lifeson was the space, the breath, the link between the mind and the heart. Neil Peart was the intellectual soul and Geddy Lee was the multitasking engine. He never did too much. Never left anything out. And a lot of musicians have said they don't know why Alex's music is so popular. It's not about being technically perfect, it's about telling stories through melody. Some riffs sound like Radio, Limelight, or Tom Sawyer. They're not just background noise, they add to the feeling of the song. In Free Will and La Villa Strangiato, the solos aren't just shows of skill, they bring to life a lot of images, feelings, and meaning. He had a huge impact on the artists who came after him. Folks like John Petrucci, Dream Theater, Steven Wilson, Porcupine Tree, Paul Gilbert, Mr. Big, and many more have called Alex a quiet giant who taught them that a guitar doesn't have to scream to be heard. Many of the things he used, like open chords, reverse delays, layered tunes, and dual-line phrasing, were popular long before they were popular. Fans had been waiting decades for Rush to be inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 2013, Alex gave the now famous blah 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 speech, which was a sharp, funny, and cutting satire at the music business for ignoring Rush for so long. It wasn't a joke, it was a message from an artist who never gave up when they got noticed after the fact. Alex Lifeson's most important legacy is that he was an artist who didn't have to give in to live. In order to stay popular, he didn't follow trends or hurt himself. He also never used his personal life to get attention. That changed the way people in the rock world thought about things. Now, kindness, consistency, and intelligence could live alongside fame and noise. Music experts may keep arguing about who is the best guitarist, but Alex Lifeson is a true masterpiece for anyone who has really listened to Rush and been haunted by those strange riffs and sounds that are at once close and far, urgent and reflective. He doesn't need to be at the top of any list because the most honest followers will always remember him. Alex's memory isn't a hit song, it's a steady flow that never stops inspiring people. Present life, many people thought Alex Lifeson would quietly leave the music business after Rush's official end in 2018 due to the death of Peart, who had been his partner for more than 40 years. He did that for a while. There were no shows, new albums, or public events. It wasn't a finish, though. There had to be quiet. A break for someone who had lived their whole life in sound and had to learn how to live without a piece of their artistic soul. Alex spent most of his time on family, personal hobbies, and himself in the years after Neil's death. This was something he rarely had time to do during Rush's tough years. He painted more, took more trips with his wife, played golf, read books, and sometimes showed up quietly at charity events in Toronto. People who had been waiting for a big solo project slowly got it. Lifeson didn't have anything more to show, and he would only make music when he had something important to say. Then, in 2021, Alex came back, but this time not with a flashy solo record. Instead, he came back with a whole new project called Envy of None. Along with Andy Curran, a veteran of Coney Hatch, Myung Win on vocals, and Alfio Annabellini as a composer, he put together a band that leaned toward alternative and ambient sounds. The music was more like an emotional landscape than a performance stage. It wasn't an extension of Rush or a replacement for it. It was the start of a new phase that was quiet, personal, and free. People liked Lifeson's first record, 2022's Envy of None, because it was creative and a clear break from his past. He didn't play as many solos, but each note he played was important. There were no more egotistical rants or well-known riffs. There were only whispered sounds that sounded like the soul had seen enough to know how to listen to itself. The band's second album, Stygian Waves, came out in 2025. It was a big step forward in Lifeson's musical thought. In interviews, he said, "It's a simple answer, but it makes the most sense for where I am now." Alex Lifeson keeps making music in the background, even though he doesn't play on big shows anymore. He still writes music, makes movies, and sometimes helps with community art projects in Canada from his home workshop. Alex didn't quit, according to people who know him. Just now, he changed how he lived his songs. While many of his contemporaries have either left the stage or are desperately trying to hold on to fading fame, Alex Lifeson has chosen to move forward quietly, not repeating himself and not acting to meet anyone's expectations. He is now in his 70s. So maybe that's why his fans still see him as a complete artist who never changed who he is at his core, a man whose life is just like the sound of his guitar, calm, deep, and without any need for direction. Alex Lifeson never had to be in the spotlight to show how great he was. He didn't come out on stage with big claims or burning fire. He just bowed his head and played the first few notes. Just let the song speak for itself. Alex chose to live and work in silence in a world where noise often drowns out meaning. And it's just that quiet that makes him unique and, in the end, timeless. Lifeson went from being a Serbian boy stuck between two cultures to being the main person behind one of the best progressive rock bands ever. Family pressure, bias in the market, lack of interest from the media, and the tragic death of his best friend Peart all hurt him.